Robert Duvall was never afraid to say what he thought, especially about stars he didn't like. So much did he dislike them that he once turned down multi-million-dollar offers to stay away from sharing the screen. Some of his fights with famous stars like John Wayne needed a third party to calm things down, and his cold answer when asked if he would ever work with a certain co-star again was memorable. "Now we're having this big fight for 20. Every night, I called him. He told them he didn't know. Also, I felt dizzy." In today's video, we talk about the 6 stars that Robert Duvall really didn't like, and the strange reasons why. See it through to the end to get the whole story. Marlon Brando is number 1. This was the 50th anniversary of Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece, The Godfather. In 2022, Robert Duvall's honest thoughts on Marlon Brando started a new discussion. Duvall didn't hold back when he talked about the mysterious giant of method acting. He was known for being honest and straightforward in his work. He called Brando an actor's enemy, which was a hurtful term that showed more than just a personality clash. Duvall didn't hold a small grudge against them. They had very different ideas, and were angry at each other because they worked together on the set of The Godfather. Duvall's character Tom Hagen stood next to Brando's character Don Vito Corleone in some of cinema's most famous scenes. But behind the scenes, he saw behavior that disgusted him. Duvall didn't see Brando as a genius at work. He saw him as a mean person. He said that he put down younger actors, ruined performances, and even messed up scenes when the camera was off of them. Duvall didn't think this was brilliant. It was pure destructive ego that was getting in the way of the teamwork that movies need. But the most telling thing Robert Duvall said decades later might have been about Marlon Brando's famous use of cue cards. Duvall says Brando was so stubborn that he made other players tape lines to their bodies because he wouldn't learn his lines by heart. He told the AV Club what he really thought about this strange thing in an honest interview in 2022. He said it made him act without thinking. "I believe it was partly that, and partly being lazy. It wasn't just a rumor or talk from other people. A famous person in Hollywood made a direct charge against another famous person." Duvall even admitted that he had tried using chords himself, but gave up on the idea very quickly. "You can be very spontaneous even if you know your lines by heart," he said, emphasizing that he thought preparation was the key to good acting. Brando, who liked to keep things mysterious, never answered these harsh attacks in public. Brando had already died in 2004 by the time Duvall's meanest comments about him came out. He called him lazy and even an enemy of players. His unusual ways of defending himself were the only ones that worked, whether he meant to or not. For Duvall, though, this was never about not liking the person. It had to do with respecting the work. His own theory, which was based on discipline, honesty, and being fully ready, was the exact opposite of what he saw as Brando's carelessness and noise on set. He later agreed that Brando's natural style had been revolutionary, but that didn't change how frustrated and disrespected he was of the way he worked. Henry Hathaway is number 2. Robert Duvall has always believed that acting should be honest. Every line and scene has to be lived, not told. When he got to the set of the 1969 Western classic True Grit and saw that Henry Hathaway was in charge, sparks were bound to fly. This wasn't just a small argument. It was a full clash of 2 very different art worlds. Hathaway, who had been a director in Hollywood for a long time, put power above all else. He was strict, bossy, and unwilling to bend, which didn't leave much room for the natural, method-based performance that Duvall, a rising 38-year-old actor, so deeply respected. It was clear from the start that there was stress. Hathaway's way of doing things wasn't just annoying to Duvall, it was smothering. He told the truth years later. "The director and I didn't get along. Even though I don't get along with many directors." Hathaway's words were even more off-putting. "We are not going to talk about Henry Hathaway." That she wouldn't even talk about the man showed how bad the experience had been. One moment really showed how they felt about each other. When Hathaway told him to do something, he barked, "Tense up. Thanks a lot." For Duvall, who acts based on his instincts, that kind of manufactured order was unbearable. It took away the show of truth and turned it into mindless obedience. On the set of True Grit, there was a clash of wills right away, with an old-school disciplinarian trying to keep things under control, and a young actor wanting to be free. Duvall was hurt by the experience, not because he lost the fight, but because it showed him everything he thought acting should not be. Third, Bruce Harris Ford. Robert Duvall hates being squished more than anything else. He doesn't mind being told what to do, but he can't stand control that is so tight that it kills creativity and takes the life out of a show. The way you act with him is a natural exchange that is fluid, unpredictable, and living. So there were bound to be problems when he worked on the 1983 drama Tender Mercies with Australian director Bruce Harris Ford. In a strange twist, Duvall's only Academy Award for Best Actor would go to the part he played under Feuds' direction, but behind the praise was a rough working relationship marked by differing ideas. Feuds was very careful with the job, which Duvall thought was more like micromanaging than helping. Every move and word seemed to be limited by strict rules, which stifled the spontaneity that Duvall built his success on. The fighting between them wasn't as bad as his fights with Henry Hathaway, but it was still very hard on him. Duvall felt like he was pushing against the wall during the process, trying to make a performance more real while constantly being pulled back. In the end, Tender Mercies was a critical success that cemented Duvall's place in the history of movies. But the image of working with Feuds that sticks with me is not one of success, but of frustration. Proof that the fight for artistic freedom can leave scars even when it is won. The fourth person is David Fincher. Micromanagement that looks like art is something that Robert Duvall will not stand for. He sees acting as living, as something natural and unplanned, not like a factory line where the same thing is done over and over again. So when David Fincher became famous for his obsession with detail and never-ending takes, Duvall didn't see genius. He saw someone suffocate. Others praised Fincher's careful style, which required 40, 50, or even 70 takes for a single scene, but Duvall didn't even bother to consider it. That is not leading. He used to joke that was torture. He didn't think this was about finding the truth in performance. Sanding it down until it was dead was what it was about. On set, their disagreements never blew up, but they were close. In the middle of the 1990s, Fincher secretly asked Duvall to play a part in Say 7N, his now iconic thriller. Officially, he said no because of a conflicting schedule. But many years later, he finally told the truth in a very honest moment. I just couldn't do 60 times of the same line. It's possible that I unconsciously turned it down. In that statement, it became clear that there were two different ideas about films. Fincher thought that endless repetition was the key to finding greatness. Duvall thought that artists could only show the truth if they were allowed to live in the present. That difference was enough for him to leave. Fifth on the list is Stanley Kubrick. Robert Duvall, who was influenced by American realism, has always thought that it was the actor's job to be ready, aware, and present. It was this unwavering attitude that led to a head-on collision with the famous director Stanley Kubrick. Robert Duvall has always thought that hard work is the key to good acting. Every word and action is shaped by planning and being honest, which lets real spontaneity happen. For him, the power of success is not in doing too much, but in not doing too much. A quiet energy that draws you in without being flashy. So when the name Stanley Kubrick comes up, Duvall doesn't show respect. Kubrick is a director who is known for his precision, artistry, and groundbreaking vision. Instead, he gives a harsh review that wasn't based on disagreements with Kubrick on the set, but on what he saw in his work, and how he was known for directing. Duvall didn't hold back when he talked about the 2010 Hollywood Reporters Awards. He shocked everyone in the room by saying, "To me, the great Stanley Kubrick was an actor's enemy." Then he made his point even stronger by naming two of Kubrick's most famous films, The Shining and A Clockwork Orange. Duvall thought these performances were not works of art. They were not what they seemed. He said it straight out. Terrible performances. There may be great films with bad acting. Ryan Gosling and the other stars laughed in shock, but Duvall wasn't scared. His anger was mostly directed at Kubrick's well-known habit of needing dozens or even hundreds of takes for a single scene. How does he know the first take is different from the 70th? Duvall asked a question that got to the heart of why he didn't like it. That wasn't all that this meant for him. It was harmful, taking away actors' sincerity and replacing it with tiredness. Duvall thinks that a real director knows what they want and can get it from the actors without making them suffer. So, even though Kubrick was a great director, he could never explain what he saw as an insult to the actor's work. Robert Duvall is number 6. Robert Duvall never thought that acting was about copying or making big moves. It had to do with digging. He thought that a script should be stripped down to its heart. The quiet truth should be found between the lines, and it should be delivered with no airs or feathers. Awards, mysteries, and routines for changing himself didn't mean much to him. What counted was being real. Duvall didn't go on and on about how great Robert Duvall was when his name came up. He instead made a wry comment. "He can play Italians well. Wonderful." It sounded like a praise at first, but it really meant that you didn't deserve it. In the Godfather trilogy, both men had been on sacred ground together, but their paths did not cross again. While Duvall became famous for parts in Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Goodfellas, Duvall built his career on roles that were less flashy and more about the actor's inner strength. Duvall's tone didn't sound like envy. It was more like doubt. He once said in secret that some actors become stars. Some people become artists. People get the two mixed up sometimes. People who work in the field noticed this quiet split in conversations. When Duvall was asked about Dyro, he kept his replies short and polite, but not admiring. He did not dislike Dyro, he just wouldn't honor him. The gap grew longer over the years. The Apostle, Get Low, and Broken Trail were character-driven projects that Duvall worked on, while Meet the Parents sequels and big mob movies were more of Dyro's style. A wise man named Duvall once said that becoming a copy of yourself can be dangerous. Even more so if you start trusting your own myth. Dyro never got into a direct fight. He gave a controlled answer when asked about Duvall. Bob is a serious performer. I've always looked up to him. We're just not as energetic as each other. But there was more to the split than just personalities. Duvall saw acting as a job, a blue-collar skill based on presence, listening, and silence. For Dyro, it was a way to change, like shaving their heads, putting on weight, or improving their accents. The whole world praised those extremes. Duvall did nothing but cross his arms. He once said, "The work isn't in the weight gain. It's in the quiet. It doesn't matter how many hats you wear if you're not there." Both men were quiet and didn't say anything when they didn't agree on set. Two great people from the same time walking in opposite ways. When they were in public, they kept being polite. At award shows, all that was done was shake hands. Not hatred, just a disagreeing view. Duvall saw Dyro as an example of the kind of acting he didn't like. One that was based on mystery, change, and excess. For Dyro, he kept looking for the extremes, adding to a history of passion. They weren't split over an incident, but over a stubborn question. How do you conduct well? The person who saw it never thought it was Robert Dyro. That may say it all. Duvall left behind more than just his achievements in the end. It was his beliefs that he wouldn't give up. He had a deep respect for the craft, which led him to call actors like Marlon Brando lazy, Dyro's over-the-top acting, and David Fincher's obsession with dozens of takes all wrong. On set, he expected people to be disciplined, honest, and humble. The rest of what he saw was noise. Still, the question remains, was Robert Duvall right to stand his ground, or was he just stuck in the old ways and couldn't change with the times in Hollywood?